There is a bleak observation about human empathy, often attributed to Joseph Stalin. It suggests that one death is a tragedy, but a million deaths is a statistic. We recoil at the phrasing, but we instinctively understand the math. Our capacity to care has limits. Jesus addressed this limit using an ancient story about a shepherd with 100 sheep, who leaves the flock to find a single missing animal. We typically read this as a religious lesson about divine love, but it also functions as an acute sociological observation about the constraints of human community. This network diagram illustrates a concept known as Dunbar's number. Anthropologist Robin Dunbar proposed that the human brain can only maintain about 150 stable social relationships. A flock of 100 sheep fits comfortably inside this biological limit. Beyond that threshold, the network begins to break down into separate factions. Within that stable group, the 99 members survive and thrive because they share a baseline sense of belonging. They operate with an intuitive understanding of the group's unspoken rules, radiating a protective, unified boundary against the isolation of the outside world. Because the majority feels comfortable, they assume their environment is entirely safe. This creates a dangerous community blindness. When the flock sees a quiet person sitting alone on the margins, they lack the perspective to recognize someone who is lost. They assume that person simply wants to be left alone. To understand how smaller communities operate within the flock, Jesus tells a second story, stepping the scale down from 100 sheep to a woman searching for one of 10 coins. In Jewish tradition, a group of 10 people forms a minyan, the minimum quorum required for a public assembly. Today, it represents the scale of a large family or a tight inner circle of close friends. This smaller group functions as social armor. 10 people care more deeply about specific, nuanced opinions than a group of 100 ever could. If a few members hold an unpopular view, the support of their closest peers protects them from the pressure of the larger flock. A broader community of 100 provides general safety, but finding an inner circle of 10 is the minimum requirement to survive socially. Without that tight-knit group backing you up, an individual's distinct personality is easily erased by the sheer gravity of the majority. Which brings us down to the scale of the isolated individual. The final story in this sequence is the parable of the prodigal son. We usually view him as a reckless rebel, but a closer look reveals a young man who is entirely locked out of any supportive group. Read the text closely. When his money runs out in a foreign country, he has 0 friends to rely on. He gets hired by a local citizen who clearly takes advantage of him, sending him out to feed pigs. Yet, even when he is starving, he is so rigidly rule-bound that he refuses to steal the animal fodder. This behavior suggests something deeper than a simple fall from grace. He is easily scammed, unable to build alliances, and fails to read social cues. He represents the archetype of a black sheep who has never actually belonged to the flock. Today, we recognize the specific pattern of social blindness in neurodivergent conditions like autism. For these individuals, the social decoder ring, the ability to intuitively read tone, etiquette, and warmth, in function. Researchers found a 42% increase in resting brain activity in autistic children. This active internal landscape creates massive data overload. High-frequency internal noise scrambles external social signals, forcing the individual to withdraw to cope. The wider social majority misdiagnoses this overwhelmed withdrawal. The flock interprets the silence as arrogance or aloofness, labeling the individual a black sheep and ostracizing them for a physiological difference they cannot control. Immediately after these parables, Jesus introduces the shrewd manager, a story so confusing it is rarely preached on. It reframes the entire discussion about what humans actually value. The manager finds out he is being fired for wasting his wealthy employer's assets. Knowing he is about to lose his income, he calls in his boss's debtors and systematically slashes the amounts they owe, deliberately destroying more of the boss's wealth. His logic is entirely sociological. He knows he isn't built for hard labor, so he liquidates cold material wealth to purchase the only currency that will guarantee his survival, the favor of his peers. He proves that a network of friends is far more valuable than cash. Jesus uses this story to critique the religious elite of his day. Unlike the shrewd manager, the Pharisees hoarded their status and social capital, aggressively excluding the awkward outcasts and the tax collectors to maintain their own prestige. By hoarding the warm glow of belonging, the elite levy a social tax on everyone outside their circle. This refusal to share social capital effectively weaponizes the community against the individual. We cannot expect neurodivergent or socially isolated individuals to magically learn how to navigate a cultural wilderness that is hostile to how their brains function. Passive tolerance does not solve the problem. The cure requires active, disruptive inclusion. It requires breaking our own circles open to make room for people who do not naturally fit the established pattern. Jesus provided the historical precedent for this. He bypassed the socially successful elite entirely. Instead, he sought out the isolated, the awkward, and the outcasts, deliberately building his inner circle of 12 from the margins of society. If you already enjoy the safety and warmth of a flock, you possess a hoarded social capital. The task is to spend it. Walk to the back of the room, find the person sitting in silence, and make room for people who do not naturally fit the established pattern.